Don't she want to lick the plate? I suppose she did. She lick yours?
Just to let you know, we are live now.
Yeah, we're live. Right. Welcome everybody to the meeting of the Standards Advisory Committee. As this is the first meeting of the municipal year, we have to appoint both a chair and a deputy chair. So if I could please call for nominations for the position of chair. Someone would like to nominate someone for the chair?
I'll nominate Razor.
Could someone second that, please?
I will. Yes.
Okay.
Nominated you?
Yes. Me too.
Okay.
Right, sorry about that, everyone.
Okay.
A long day, which I will tell you another day.
And
Apologies. Where am I sitting?
thank you. If I just, we are actually live now, Chair. We started the meeting. Just to say that we had to appoint a chair and that they have nominally appointed yourself.
Right, very kind of you.
Please take your seat somewhere and I'll call for nominations for deputy chair.
Right here.
Okay.
So, Chair, you can sit there or you can just.
We need to vote. Look, we had the nominations.
Oh,
Don't think we've had a vote.
You're quite right. Would you like to please, we've had the nomination of Reza Chowdhury as chair and seconded by Julie. Can we vote please on that, please?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's easy for me to sit over there, actually, isn't it? Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Right. Okay, while the chair's settling himself in, can I ask for nominations for deputy chair, please?
Oh, thank you.
Someone wants to nominate a deputy?
Nominate Julie.
Okay, could someone second that, please?
Second.
Yes, I will.
Thank you. And can we vote on that as well, please?
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay, so Reza, when you're ready, if you'd like to.
Thank you very much indeed. And thank you to committee members for nominating me to the post again. And of course, I think I speak for deputy chair as well, Julie. So thank you very much indeed. And once again, I apologize for my delay. My day job overran, sadly, with the state of everything else, transport and all the rest of it. Welcome to those who have joined us via the live streaming. Let me then begin the agenda. So we've dealt with the appointment of chair in my absence, and I'm grateful. The deputy chair just now. Can we turn to item number 3, which is apologies for absence or substitute? Any apologies?
Yes, Chair, we've got apologies from Ashok Hussain, independent member.
Yeah.
Councillor Caroline Adeja.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Right here.
Councillor Anne Easter is actually joining us via Zoom.
Yes. Nice to see you, Councillor. So
Thank you.
You can hear me, can you? Yes.
I can. Thank you perfectly.
Good. Right. Declarations of it. Yes. So sorry. Yeah.
The flag, there are people not present who we haven't had apologies from. So Councillor Animal Islam. I don't know if perhaps Councillor Easter might know where Councillor Islam is.
Well, before we turn to Councillor Easter, have we had any formal apologies?
We haven't, no, Chair.
Councillor Islam. Right. And I think his presence here today would have been extremely important. As I recall, it was on the last occasion, in the last meeting, because we have a very, very important item to deal with today. It may well be the case that he may be running late, which I think he was on the last occasion. But so far, we haven't had any explanation. And I think, Councillor Easter, you were nodding your head earlier to Councillor Higgins, whether you knew anything about his whereabouts. Not that anybody's suggesting that you're keeping his diary in any way, but yeah.
My brother's keeper.
Yes.
Not
No,
on this occasion.
Right.
Yeah.
New member tonight.
We do, Chair.
Yeah.
Apologies, that's very important. Yes, Chair, we do have a new member.
Yeah.
Councillor Higgins has been appointed to the committee. Is a party, and as you recall last time, it was Councillor Danny Keane.
Indeed, yes. Thank you very much for reminding me. I had rather taken as granted that you were here and part and parcel of the committee, but thank you and welcome to you formally to the committee. I'm sure that you will do if not better than equally predecessor did from your party. So welcome. Yes, so going back to the absence of Councillor Islam, not that we as committee members have any interest of singling out anybody, but it is, I mean, his presence is always welcome, but particularly so because we've got a significant item to deal with. Yes, Councillor.
So there's an interesting coincidence where Councillor Islam is also the whip of his group and I'm
Yes,
the business manager of my group, but we are formally here as members of the council,
yes,
not as representatives of our group. And
right.
I think I'm not immediately familiar with all the work of the previous term, but I think at times those roles might have been confused.
Yes.
And of course, it's unfortunate Councillor Islam isn't here, but I don't think it should prevent us carrying out the duties of this committee.
Oh, no, not at all. Not in any way, but I think in the spirit of cooperation, trying to get work done, it would have been helpful. But of course, it doesn't force this committee's hand in any way whatsoever.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that the groups don't have like formal representatives in this committee.
Yes.
We are here as council members.
Yeah,
Therefore, his absence isn't depriving the committee of anything that we necessarily need to do our work.
no, I think that much, especially for my part, is a given. I'm certainly not going to be simply saying, well, he's not here and therefore any work that we need to get on with today is just going to be hampered. No, not at all. But the point isn't lost, I'm sure, on the rest of us. Yes.
Chair, just to inform you that if it helps, we have had a response from the Labour group, which we will deal with
Oh,
in
excellent.
item 9.
Very good. All right, fine. So without spending any further time on this, unless you want me to, shall we move on to item 5, which is the confirmation of the minutes of the last meeting and the action log, which we can find starting at page 9 of our papers. So should we just have a look at the minutes firstly before we turn to the action log, which we can find it. Yes. Sorry. Did we not deal with those a moment ago? Declarations of interest?
Declarations.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I thought we had. All right. Well, look, have we dealt with declarations of interest?
I don't think you have.
No, right. Apologies. No, thank you very much. Yes, declarations of interest. Any? Councillor Easter?
What's going on? Make me see.
We can't hear you.
You're on mute.
Sorry, I thought we were on the minutes. Back to the declaration of interest.
Yes, sorry, that's my fault. No, fine, very well. That's right. Okay, so
No,
yeah,
I don't have any.
very well. Minutes then, which is back to page 9. So as I usually do, I go through the pages just to flag up anything. So page 9. As I said a moment ago, we'll turn to the action log in a minute, but page 9 and over the page 10, I think we were looking at the action log. There's the work program, an update of the code of conduct, which are, by the way, are all part of today's meeting anyway. Page 11, page 12. I think there's a resolution that we agreed to note the previous monitoring officers' reports. We've dealt with that. Chair speech. Well, I was at the meeting and I delivered my speech. So without any rancor or criticism, I didn't think, or at least I wasn't aware of it anyway. And then over the page 13, finally to page 14, any observations, any comments, any accuracies to be made by anyone? No.
Okay,
In that case, do we confirm the accuracy?
Just to be clear, I wasn't at this meeting.
No, I understand that. I understand that. No, absolutely. No, fine. I understand that. Yes, do we confirm the accuracy for those of us who were here? Thank you. Should we turn to the action log? I think they're ongoing, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yes,
Take you through a few of them.
yes,
Yes, that's okay.
yes.
On the review of the model code of conduct.
Yeah.
We've got a separate item in relation to that, so
Yes.
we will come to that at that point. And as my colleague says, we've had update from the Labour Party now, so we can sort of deal with that. On the work programme, again, we've got an item on the agenda, so we can deal
Yes.
with that there.
Yeah.
On the recruitment of the independent member, we've now, we are in the process of recruiting that person. And I think the closing date is next week, is that right, Joy?
21st of
Yeah,
July.
so once we've got the applications in and so forth, we'll make arrangements to carry out the recruitment in relation to that.
Is there anything that members can do to assist the recruitment, such as sharing an advert or anything? I haven't seen any advert on the Twitter, for example,
Oh, okay, okay.
so I don't. I sometimes have people asking me if there are any roles sort of.
Of course, yes. Let's send it out.
Send it out to members. Yeah, it is. I think it was advertised in the Newham Recorder. I'm pretty
Okay.
certain it was, but yeah, we can certainly send you the link. No, yeah.
Does it still not go out into the Newham magazine? Is that fine publication still going?
It is, yes, it does still exist. It is still going.
Yeah.
I think the issue with it going in the Newham magazine was because of the way they roll the magazine, it would have been quite late.
I see.
Yeah.
So I think it went out. I think it went out in, I'll check for you and I'll let members know where it went and
Yeah.
Yes, but because the closing date is imminent, if we could do that tomorrow, Joy, if that's
course,
okay. Yeah, but that's a good suggestion. We need the right for.
Yes, I think accessibility is key, isn't it? The more access we have, the better it is, I think, for everyone. Yes, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, so turning the page to page 16, on the member induction and training, we've got Steve who's done the report and he'll present that agenda. In relation to item 014 there, reports on constitution of the committee and member safety protocol. That's, I'm not sure what that was, Joey. Can you workshop on constitution?
which number is it? Sorry.
014 SSC 014. It's just the second item from the top.
On member safety?
Right. Okay. I think back in either July last time or October last time, we was meant to have some reports around the member safety protocol. But that didn't actually happen. But you then went on to have your review of your sort of the code of conduct and your constitution. Although I think as I understand it, what did happen was an email did go out to all members, sending them some information around safety and safety of members and stuff like that, and some links. So I'm not sure whether Councillor Keeley may have received that because I don't know if it was before the new term started. But members were definitely sent out an email about member safety. And I think it was decided afterwards that maybe it would be looked at in line with the review of the constitution again.
Oh, fine, yeah.
A letter's gone out. That's it. I know a letter had gone out. Somebody had definitely gone out from them.
Yeah. So picking that up, then we've got the review of the constitution, which is taking place at the moment. And
Yes.
there'll be a report to council next week, just setting out the framework and the process for that. And already a number of individuals, including Councillor Higgins, sort of invited to meeting on relation to that. So that work will take place. And what we're hoping to do, Chair, is bring all the standards changes to the October meeting. Okay. With a view to taking to the October council meeting to agree. So that will be the code of conduct together with a new framework for dealing with complaints,
Right.
as well as that to get to the October standards committee. There's a slight difficulty there.
Can I just, excuse me, can I just say, your voice isn't travelling very well and it looks like you're having a private conversation.
Yes.
Beg your pardon, I'll speak louder than.
Thank you.
So we're hoping to get all the standards framework as well as the code to the October council meeting. So that will mean that we'll need to change the date of this standards committee so that that takes place about 2 weeks before council, so that we can take it all to council at that October council meeting.
And is that because there's outstanding work to be done? Because there's a review going on of the constitution now.
Yes, yes. Well, the code of conduct, which we're going to talk about
Yeah.
later on, obviously that's now more or less ready to go.
Yes.
Okay. But we've got council next week. So
Yes.
It's late to take it there.
Yes,
And we just thought that it would be best to do the terms of reference review and the new framework for managing and dealing with complaints of conduct all at the same time in October, and then take it to council.
I see.
So when in October is that actually going to be?
Yeah, so the October council meeting is, do I remind me, 6th, right, okay. And I think our meeting is on the 12th, I think it's.
What was the 18th, our meeting?
It says our meeting is set for the 18th of October, so it's
Yeah.
after council.
Yeah, that's why we'll just need,
So you wanted to do before that?
yeah, about 2 weeks before.
Actually, I arranged my time to come to this. So
Sorry, I didn't,
I actually arranged I've actually got to go on leave and I actually arranged it, so I'll be back in time for the meeting.
oh, I see.
Okay.
Not going to happen, so that I can't change that, so I won't be here for that.
Right.
My apologies about that. I just think the only other way of doing it is to take it to the date that's set and then take it to the council in
Yes.
December time. We could do that if you prefer.
No, don't delay it. It's been delayed enough. I think it needs to go. It's just that I'm not going to be here for that, that's all.
Will you be able to join us via video?
I'm going to be in Turkey, I certainly won't.
Eh,
Join me via Turkey.
well, in that case, we wouldn't want you to either. Enjoying the sun?
In fact,
The other option,
I think if you're having it that time, no, I think I might be in Edinburgh actually, so I'm coming back and going straight to Edinburgh, so I probably won't be able to.
the other option, Chair, is just to take the code of conduct to the October council meeting, because that's ready.
Yes.
Yeah, and then to take the changes to the framework for investigation and so forth in December. That's another option.
That seems more sensible to me than changing meeting dates.
Do any of the others have any views, or do we agree with that approach?
I agree with that.
That seems to be, yeah, timeline wise, I think,
Yeah.
yeah,
We stay with the dates as they are
yes,
and just take the code of conduct to the council meeting.
yes,
Okay, that's fine.
yes. Are we happy with all of that? Yeah,
Yes, I had a question. It might actually be a question for Satish. If I had comments on the proposed timeline for the constitutional review, I assume this isn't the venue to make those comments, but it's
Next week.
next week. Okay, cool. Just because it was brought up, I wanted to check.
Okay.
but I think our terms of reference is being looked at, isn't it?
We haven't had a proper review of our terms of reference.
Yes.
We do need to do that.
Yes,
And I would suggest doing that in the October meeting, as well as the
yeah.
arrangements for dealing with code of conduct complaints.
I think that was an issue that was flagged up, and I think that was canvassed by your predecessor.
Yeah,
With our agreement, I think. And it would be helpful because we are updating pretty much everything else. Code of conduct, the constitution, it makes sense therefore to move with the times. And to have our own terms of reference looked at to ensure that it is fit for purpose. Yeah.
so can I suggest, Chair, that we have two reports, the October meeting of the Standards Committee. One is to deal with the terms of reference, and the second one to deal with the arrangements for investigative complaints.
We happy with that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
good.
Well, 2 October cassette.
Yeah. Two
Absolutely.
reports to the staff in October, yeah.
And are you happy with that? Right here. Very good. All right. Anything else on the
Any other
action log?
matters are on the agenda, Chair.
Yes. So I think that takes care of the action log. Unless anybody has any observations on the action log, I intend to move on to the next item, item 6, which is the member training and development program, which we can find materials on from page 21 onwards. And I don't know if anybody who's leading this.
Can I say?
Yes.
Of introduction, then
Yes.
Steve will take.
Yes.
It's really important that we have a proper programme of member training and development, just to increase the knowledge of members to be able to, for them to be able to carry out their role. So that's very important. We've had a training programme that's been going for some time. We have recently reviewed the arrangements around training, and at your previous committee, you asked for a report in terms of how the training was happening and to what extent we had reviewed and how it would have been sort of recast. So Steve's leading on this in terms of coordinators, that he'll take you through the details.
Very good. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Basically, there was an extensive member training and development programme developed prior to the 2022 local elections, which was originally envisaged until the end of March 2023, and obviously we're running beyond that now. It's attached to Appendix 1, just for information. Did this committee back in July 2020 that there'd been significant slippage in the delivery of the programme due to staff turnover, and that attendance by members had been quite variable. Then, following the meeting, wrote to members to impress upon them the importance of attending the sessions that were being arranged, but also undertook a review consultation with members about the nature of the programme and whether it was working for them. And we've got about 10 responses, which have influenced the way that we've shaped the programme subsequently. One of the recurrent themes of the feedback that we got from councillors was that they wanted to have training on the services that Newham provides, the key issues. We were just saying in passing that the original programme envisaged a lot of departmental induction sessions would happen in May, I think, or June last year, and most of it didn't happen. So to a large extent, we've been using the member training development programme subsequently to this review in the autumn last year to fill in that gap, because it seemed to be the big need as expressed members that they needed to understand what does Newham do, who, you know, why do we do it the way we do it, who are the people that are doing it, what's the role of partners. So we refocused the programme in the autumn of 2022 to address the concerns expressed. And paragraph 4.1 shows or lists the 26 sessions that have been to date. It's worth noting that the original programme data sessions, and to try and increase the attendance at data sessions, at least some of the ones, we actually reran the three of them, casework and member inquiries and local government finance, for example. And we were also rerunning one or two where, for different reasons, a lot of councillors weren't able to attend the original session. So we're trying to keep it as tailored as possible, but also ensuring that the essentials get covered. We've also done, alongside the main programme, a number of sessions for councillors on particular committees that have a regulatory or a judicial role, and those have been orientated or focused on the councillors who are members of those committees rather than all councillors. They include the audit committee, licensing, planning committee. So again, tailoring it as best we can to the particular circumstances. Attendance continues to vary. Generally speaking, I'd say we get between a third and a half of the full council attending any one session. The maximum we've had in the past was 39 for a session on housing, and 52 sessions, basically one was a repeat of the first, on gender diversity. So I think on the whole, what we're finding is that probably about a third to a half of the councillors attend any one session. They vary. There's no constant pattern that a certain type of councillor, you know, long-standing councillors, members of the cabinet, new councillors or whatever, attend or don't attend. They're usually reasons why they do or they don't. Obviously, they're generally pretty busy people and alternative meetings that they can go to significant periods of affected their attendance as well. So of the 8 sessions, I just did a quick snapshot really. This is just a snapshot of the 8 sessions that were run so far in 2023. 100% of the attendees providing feedback said that the overall of the training had met or exceeded their requirements in 7 out of the 8 sessions, whilst in the 8th case, the corresponding figure councillor didn't think it had met their needs. Obviously, not all councillors respond and provide feedback, but we have to use the information we've got. But it feels like what we've been doing since the autumn of last year is helpful for councillors who are attending. Some sessions are better than others, some trainers are better than others, but feedback has generally been pretty positive. Let me think, what have I not said? Paragraphs 4, 5 and 4, 6 set out the currently planned and envisaged sessions. They take us, I think, broadly up to the end of the municipal year in March 2024. But what I propose to do is to have another review of what we're doing and get some further feedback from councillors about what kind of thing they would find useful going forward. And probably we'll do that at the end of this calendar year to give us plenty of time to basically start planning for April onwards in 2024-25. So that's basically where I think we are. Generally running pretty well. It's very low budget. Most of the work has been done by people in-house, though we have brought in external trainers where that was appropriate. And obviously we learn to develop it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. Any points or question arising out of it? Yes.
I didn't know if maybe Julie wanted to go first, because I have quite a few, because obviously I've been to some of these sessions, but Julie would.
No, thank you. So I just wanted to look at paragraph 5.1.
5.1.
Yeah.
Page 25.
Says here that I just need some clarification here around. It says there was this will be addressed following a further. So I'm not clear. Are you saying all the training in 5.2 has that not been delivered? Is that what that's saying?
Right, no.
Oh.
No, if you read the comment section, what it's actually saying in a number of instances, I think, is that we've picked it up different. For example, there's one on communication, social media and emergency planning. We ran a social media session in November, which was separate.
Yeah.
We've also done a community safety overview session. We haven't specifically done communication, social media and emergency planning as one.
Right.
But some of the others we haven't done, and one of the questions that we'll need to come when we go back to councillors is how much of a priority are the ones that we haven't yet delivered.
So that does bring me on to my main concern then, which is there are a lot of these. Just looked at what we've listed as mandatory, and I think many of these we identified as being mandatory. Therefore, my take on what this is saying is that not all our councillors have been on the mandatory training. And what particularly worries, there's a number of ones that really, really concern me. The communications, social media, I think that's absolutely essential that all councillors for their own protection should be doing that. I'm also disappointed around the equalities awareness and those the anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. For me, in a borough like ours in modern day, these are areas.
Fairness as well. But it's
I hear what you're saying, but we did say that it was mandatory and we wanted to make sure that all our councillors attended some of these mandatory sessions. And what we're talking about here is that we've gone out and we've asked them what they want. Well, they want to learn about all the services that are there. And I get that. I understand that. But actually, this is a priority as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
that's my.
But we've done equalities, diversity, inclusion and cultural awareness on the 5th of October. If you look at paragraph 4.1, we've also done gender diversity and transgender awareness on the 2nd of May and the 17th of May. So I think to a large extent that's been covered. There are other issues. We haven't done the anti-Semitism one. I think that's a question that we need to go back to members about in the future. But to a large extent, I think the mandatory sessions have actually been delivered in one shape or another. But they don't necessarily follow the original titles, if you like. And that was, we were getting a lot of negative feedback when I first arrived back in June last year about the relevance of what people were being asked to attend. And we've tried to respond to that. But, you're right, equalities is a very important thing, but we have actually done 2 major sessions. And as I said earlier, the gender diversity one was attended by 52 councillors out of the 60 odd.
I mean, I know Nate wants to come in, but I would like to follow up.
Point
Might
as
as well
well,
come as
'cause
well.
so this was one of the key points. So I'm glad you picked up that anti-Semitism training hasn't happened, and it absolutely must happen, because that's one of the key areas of discrimination that there is not good cultural awareness of in the UK. But also, I'm really concerned by the LGBTQ plus awareness, 16th of January. This subject was addressed by the gender diversity training referred to in paragraph 4.1. So gender and sexuality are not the same thing.
No.
And so it can't have covered the LGBTQ plus awareness. The only other thing that could, sorry, just to let me finish. The only other thing that could have is the equalities, diversity, inclusion and cultural awareness session, which is the session where the instructor said that people choose to be gay. So I just completely refute the idea that this topic has been sufficiently covered. It hasn't, and I want to see it sufficiently covered. And the anti-Semitism training, which you flagged, hasn't been. And that was my key point on that section that I'm glad that Julie's brought up.
Thank you.
Yes, Steve, I have to sort of take umbrage of what you said there about, I mean, if you've put on training, the specific training, they're choosing not to do that, and that's being picked up slightly in other training, that's not the same thing. So, for example, if you're saying, for example, there's anti-Semitism and there's Islamophobia, that's being picked up in other training. It's completely separate, and I think that they need to be very clear. They are very separate training events. They're not the same one, so they can't. It seems to me they appear to be picking and choosing what they want to do. I'm feeling quite uncomfortable with that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Maybe I've misunderstood what you've said, but it seems to me that you've got training on, and then they decide they don't want to do it, but they're training.
No, I don't think it.
Right, can I finish? So, okay. If some parts of that training is going to be picked up in other areas, but that's not the original training, and that's what concerns me. It appears that they're not adhering to the training program. They're sort of doing training which does pick up some parts of it, but doesn't cover the whole thing. Yeah, that is slightly I feel slightly uncomfortable with that.
Yeah, I think personally, the appendix of the original programme, you'll see it says draft programme. It was never really set in stone.
Right.
And also, we do need to respond things where members aren't attending because they say it's not relevant to their needs. And I think that what I've said is not that we're not going to do anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. I think we need to come back to all of the sessions that haven't yet been delivered at all.
Yeah.
Probably also just take up your point, think, have we comprehensively covered the things that we have covered to a certain extent? But the other thing is that there's a limit to how many sessions you can actually get councillors to attend. And we did quite a lot last year, even though we didn't deliver quite a lot. 26 implies once every fortnight, roughly. And probably that was, more or less the upper limit of what we could expect people to attend. And we've been asked to reduce the number of sessions from the autumn to 1 per month. Right. So we do need to take stock of where we are towards the end of the year, because we've been filling in a gap primarily caused by the departmental induction sessions not being delivered last year, and councillors saying they still don't fully understand who does what in a lot of areas. I think probably once we've done that, we can review all of this and reprioritise going forward.
So can I just ask you, do they give you comprehensive reasons as to why they shouldn't go on that mandatory training? You know, I mean, you know, this is the issue that we had last year. And it was about where people weren't attending, and this is why we kind of asked it to be mandatory, because I thought that it was important for part of their role and part of their development to do it. Even for the old ones who have been councillors for quite a long time. I just use myself for example. I went on training yesterday. I've been doing the job 20 years. Part of me was like, I don't want to do this. I don't think it's relevant. However, I haven't gone on it. It was useful. So I think it's about sort of exploring as to the reasons why they don't want to go on some of the training. We can't force them. We spoke about that previously. And I understand your role is quite difficult in terms of coordinating everything. But however, I would like to have some sort of idea as to why they feel it's not relevant. I know there's a time factor. Some of them, they just don't want to do it. They won't do it.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to deal with.
Before you answer, I've seen your hand going up, and Easter, and can I come back to you once you've dealt with that question, and then I want to turn to a monitoring officer, and you may have something to shed light on this. Yes, go on.
Sorry, just refresh my memory. I was thought I was going to listen to Anne next, but what was the point?
Which is the question as the reasoning as to why they don't feel the training is relevant. It can't just be they don't have time. I presume there would come a reason as to why.
I think probably they have different reasons for different sessions. You know, I think that there's no strong pattern, as I said at the very beginning, about old, you know, long-standing councillors not attending, new councillors not attending, cabinet members not attending. There possibly is a bit of a correlation between people who you know are incredibly busy as councillors sometimes not attending. But then you get other people, you know, there was one, for example, who had a job outside of London who couldn't come. Others have been ill for several weeks or months. You know, it's all varies. And then you find that suddenly they start coming.
Right, okay. All right.
Chair, can I just, I think from the committee's point of view, it's important to do training and to assess to what extent all the members, if it's been deemed as mandatory, have all the members attended the mandatory training?
No. No, some of them we've rerun to try and encourage greater attendance, but mostly, you know, it's not a dissimilar sort of pattern.
Okay.
20 or 30.
Is if they're mandatory, those members need to go to that. So if they haven't been to them, then I think we ought to follow that with the groups in a sense, right, to make sure that they do go.
Well, that's what I was going to be coming back to, because it was important for me to hear other views, and I'm grateful for them. As I understand paragraph 5.1 to be what is being said towards the end of the paragraph, there is a need to decide which need to be rescheduled or scheduled and which should withdraw. And if they're mandatory, it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be left to the choice of members to decide. And if you were giving that impression, if it was unintended.
I'm trying to work out still who determined that they were mandatory. You know, for example, why is the corporate plan one mandatory? I know it's important, but you know, I can't find out who originally made these judgments. And probably if we were to go back to all the mandatory training sessions and rerun them, which seems to be the implication of some of the discussion this evening, would be 2 years time. Any further sessions? Relevant.
Why they were deemed. Yeah, there may be an issue about reassessing what's mandatory and not. And some members have said that some of the ones which are awareness oriented perhaps ought to be mandatory in a sense, right? So that's the first stage. We just need to work out, you know, which ones were deemed to be mandatory with the input of the committee, then review that. And it may be that some of the awareness ones come into the mandatory category, and then make sure that all the members across the council do attend those. And if they don't attend it, then I would suggest that we follow it through with the groups.
Well, I mean, this was a discussion I recall having, not last at the last committee meeting.
Yeah.
I think several committee meetings before that, which was that we need to rein in this whole seems to me this arbitrary way of members just deciding which ones to attend and which ones not to attend, or which to just simply change the title to suit their. I'm sure that may not be the intention, but that's the inference that one is getting at the moment. If they're mandatory, and if we are now having at this stage, if I may say so, rather late stage, to be discussing well who decided it was mandatory, then it seems to me that we are trying to roll the clock back.
Yeah.
At least a year, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Wasn't this, was it? I don't think it was this committee that made the decisions about what was mandatory.
No, I'm not stating it is. At least I don't think that's the case. I mean, the mandatory requirements were, as I understand it, were put in well before this issue had come before us as a committee to look into whether people are attending these training, and if they're not, why not?
Yeah.
Councillor
bear
Easter
with
did
me.
have her hand up.
Yes, exactly. Councillor Easter, thank you for your patience. What are we going to say?
I was going to say two things. Firstly, to make a plea on behalf of councillors who a huge percentage of our work happens in the evenings. And I had a protracted conversation with Steve, because I'm also the Commissioner for Interfaith Engagement. And there are faith celebrations all the way through the year, which we would want to embrace and enjoy. And really, it was, I could see the problems he was having trying to get a particular type of training in time. So there just aren't enough evenings, is the first thing I would say. I mean, I'm not sure if maybe some daytime training might help, but I'm sure Steve thought of that. The second thing I want to say is we haven't had training on sexism when we're talking about, 49.999% of the world. And it certainly was not covered in the gender diversity and transgender awareness. But I think I'm not happy to accept that, but I'm relieved to see that the process, which is about embracing diversity and treating all people with respect and fairness and equality, is the overarching theme that comes through. And if one were to accept that as a principle, then in a sense, whatever the difference, the principle remains the same. Thank you.
Thank you. That's helpful. Yes, I think, I have concerns about this. 5.2 seems to me to be the bulk of mandatory training, right?
Not sure it is, but I haven't actually looked at it from that point of view. What I am thinking though, Chair, is there's probably about 17 mandatory sessions in the original programme. And if we're going to do one session a month,
yeah,
and still take the programme forward rather than kind of repeating what we've already done, I find that is going to be quite difficult to square that particular circle.
You mean people?
Too many sessions in 1 year.
Yeah, and people will just be put off by it. Is that?
Yeah, and I think
the point.
I'm not entirely sure. As one of your colleagues has said, that you can't force individual councillors to do these sessions. We put the key ones on twice, and there are still people who haven't attended. I think that's probably realistically as far as we can go, unless you want the sort of Groundhog Day of member training, where we just keep on repeating it until we hit 60 odd.
So, a few things. There was a suggestion about sort of reaching out to the groups to handle this problem, I think was sort of being suggested. There was a suggestion that there wasn't a pattern for the attendance or lack of attendance at meetings. Well, I was going to ask whether there was a pattern in political groups in attendance or not attending.
I haven't looked at that, but I've got all the details. I can have a
Because I think, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think you might find that there would be. Obviously, we're a smaller group, it's slightly easier for us to show high on those records, but if we're talking about this from a group's perspective, I think a pattern would show up. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I'm really uncomfortable with this. This subject was addressed by the gender diversity training referred to in paragraph 4.1 being in this report. And I would probably propose amending, removing that from the report because it's just not true factually. It hasn't been addressed. I don't want that to, I made that point already and it's sort of just.
Is that because you were in attendance at that?
Yeah, I was in attendance at that.
You were able-
I was at attendance at both the gender diversity training, which is not about the full spectrum of LGBTQ plus awareness and was arranged specifically because of some unfortunate events at full council. And I was also at the equality, diversity, inclusion and cultural awareness training where I had to tell the instructor to stop telling people that people choose to be gay.
Yes.
That was a incredibly distressing experience. So I just don't agree that this topic has been addressed and it's in the report. And I want it out of the report, I guess I'm saying, because it's just not true.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, Nate, I have to say. But anyway, I think I think a new approach is required, is my opinion. I think 17 mandatory sessions is ludicrous.
Too much.
It really is. You don't need 17 mandatory sessions. And I think there's a way you can do this. So I've worked in organisations where you have your induction, you're a new member of staff or whatever it is. So you have an induction day. Now it's quite heavy going and I'm not suggesting that you try and cram everything into one day, but I think there is something about trying to bring some of these sessions together, which are the priority, so that councillors can use their time effectively, because listening to councillors, I can completely understand that, really busy people, evenings and all the rest of it. So I think there must be different ways of how we can deliver some of this really important stuff. And it just really troubles me. It's 2023 with the modern world that we're living in. It really troubles me that our councillors can't, they think the priority is about the services, but on that list there, as part of their induction, they have presentations from each of the directorates and things like that.
No, the point is, they didn't. That's why I'm doing this.
Yeah, okay, well, I've said what I've said. I think it needs a relook.
Yeah, they should have done, but they didn't, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Right. Was there some, by the way, your point hasn't lost. I'm going to come back to that. Sorry.
I had other comments that aren't, because we spent all our time sort of talking about that one particular section.
Yes.
There are other comments that I had about training is now a good time.
Yes, please do.
So I wanted to ask about LGA training and funding for LGA training, because many of my council colleagues on other councils regularly attend training by the local government association. And Newham is a member of the local government association, I believe. And we seem to have a much less strong culture of working with the LGA than many other councils. So for example, I was at the recent conference, as was the mayor and I think one other member, but I don't think any of us were paid to attend by Newham. Our tickets weren't paid for by Newham. And when I've reached out to ask for a particular set of training that I thought was helpful to my role, I was sort of told, well, we have the training program. So the council wasn't willing to pay for LGA training. I've not heard of any other council that would refuse.
What kind of training are you talking about?
So that was finance training. I'd just been appointed, at the time, I'd just been appointed to the Budget Scrutiny Commission, and I'd asked for specific training to do with finance. And if the council felt, that particular training wasn't justified to be paid for, that's fine. I guess what I'm asking is, councils aren't flagged that LGA training is available. There isn't a description of any kind of budget being available for it. And I think if councils are sort of missing things from here that they feel is particularly useful, it might not be a good use of like the council's time to get every councillor to a training on that particular thing. Yeah. But LGA training is there and it's run and it's
We did actually,
incredibly very helpful.
sorry, we did have about 3 or 4 sessions that were delivered by the LGA
Sure.
this programme. Let me just try and remember what they were.
I think that's kind of not really relevant to my point.
Are you saying that we're not working with the LGA? They delivered 3 or 4 of our training sessions.
No, my point is about councillors being able to access resources to attend LGA training that they run for all
Yeah.
councillors.
Okay, no, that's a
Their
slightly different.
preferences, yeah.
But I think we're having to manage a very small budget on this, and the overall member training budget is about £7,000. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of what we're doing has been delivered internally. We have done the budget and finance session delivered by the Assistant Director of Finance twice.
From what I recall, one of the reasons why the council has such an interest in the training programme at this stage is because past scrutiny reports have highlighted that training isn't good enough at this council, and it's led to, for example, the investments in the stadium maybe losing us some money. I was in a scrutiny meeting on that report. £7,000 is a very small budget for member training, and I don't know if there's anything that we can do as a committee to make that point that this isn't enough money.
What I want to know, we've got access because we are a member of the LGA, correct? We have access to training.
Yes. Yeah, and as I say, they delivered 3 sessions or 4 sessions.
All right, but
Actually,
but that access allows us entry to what? All their training?
I think you have to pay for it.
But we still have to pay for it.
I accept that.
I think it's a subsidised fee for members.
Yeah.
I think it is a lower fee if your organisation is a member, but I can't.
Right. Yes.
Chair, can I just, in an effort to take this forward, I think they're absolutely right about reviewing the member development budget, because it is, if we want more training, which is mandatory, and also take the opportunity of sending members external training. Yeah. So that's the first thing. I think the committee will make the observations in relation to the level of the training budget. The second thing I think is we're now sort of a quarter through the current municipal year, and it would be useful to just identify what additional training members think we should put on in addition to what's set out in paragraphs 4.5 and 4.6, because there's an opportunity to review that, and if members think to recast the training in a particular way, we can do that. It'd be quite useful for members to express which training they think is really mandatory, and all members should go to that. One area has been identified, and once we'll program that in, monitor it, and make sure we follow it through the various groups.
Does that seem agreeable with?
Right, Satish, do I understand you saying we basically survey members to find out what they think is mandatory?
No. I think this in relation to what is mandatory, because as you say, the mandatory definition is a bit unclear anyway. But the mandatory training that was put on last year was as part of all councillors becoming councillors, right?
Yeah.
But then there's a number of areas of training which has been deemed to be mandatory.
Yeah.
Corporate parenting, for instance, because if everybody, some areas around equalities where members feel that that should become mandatory. I'm just thinking through in the context of trying to program in sufficient and appropriate training for the next municipal year. It would be useful for members from this committee to make that observation.
I think that's very helpful. But can I just make this inquiry? Did we not have this discussion whereby the oversight of training belonged not to this committee but to another committee? I think is it the audit committee or something? Did we have some?
Talking to the head of democratic services, and he mentioned that to me earlier.
Pardon?
I was talking to the head of democratic services not long ago, and he mentioned that to me. He thought personally that the audit committee ought to own it rather than standards advisory.
Well, we were having the discussion and coming to the conclusion that it's the other way around, that come to us rather than go to audit. Yeah. For this reason, clearly it hasn't worked.
Well, I was going to say that. I was going to say, yeah. Yes.
And it's not moving along. I want to move this program along. And I think it's very important that we have not only oversight, scrutiny, but we have progress. We haven't been having any progress. I'm a little perturbed that we're still having this discussion about what is mandatory and what isn't mandatory, and what people ought to be attending, what they would not be attending. And of course, now with the addition of funding, if we do have very limited funding available, then of course people are not going to get value for their money, and they won't be able to do the work that they've been elected to do, which is one of it is to find good value for money for the people that they're serving.
I appreciate I've spoken a lot, but while we're talking about mandatory training, what's also interesting is we're about to have 2 new councillors as after tomorrow, council by-elections tomorrow, and I haven't seen any sort of reference to how we're going to get them up to speed, what their induction process is going to be.
Right.
And if we're saying that some of these topics are mandatory, then it's important that there are bespoke sessions arranged for them, and potentially we can invite, the other people who have missed mandatory training, but we'd have to decide pretty sharpish what is truly mandatory, considering that they're taking up their posts early Friday morning.
Yes, which brings us back to your suggestion, Julie, of a new approach, and I think your program setting on that. Do we agree with that? With what has been suggested, that we go about it that way? Do you just want to plug that up again?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So I think, and that makes a good point about the 2 councillors that are about to be sort of inducted. We need to make arrangements in relation to that. We should have thought of that already, actually. That's a fair point. I think the most important thing at the moment, Chair, is to identify what other training you think is really important for the rest of the municipal year. And we will program that in within the budget to make sure that it's delivered and also monitored as well. So that's the first thing. The second is we need to, as part of the review of the Constitution, make it quite clear that if you feel that this responsibility should be here, we should make that pitch in a sense.
Yes.
Obviously, automatically, but the reality is the audit committee has got quite a lot to do.
Well, they're very happy to be relieved of this then.
There will be.
Yes. Sorry, I interrupted you.
I think that's a manageable way of dealing with what we have in front of us. It's quite clearly not satisfactory.
Yeah.
The fact that we've had all this training and members have chosen to go to some things and not to other things, and especially the mandatory ones. But we do need to review that. But I think where we are at the moment, we should just target which training does need to happen this municipal year, utilise the budget in relation to that, get the responsibility for training, and then recast it for subsequent years.
Do you suggest that we do that now? I identified from this list at 5.2, or would you rather that people make comments by email after? I'm open to.
I would suggest by email, otherwise it would take all day. But I think
Yeah.
the one area of training that it's around the
This is the list in the appendix.
appendix, sorry, page 30.
Yeah.
I think there's been concern raised in relation to the LGBTQ and
Yes.
that should be probably raised up in the stake in a sense, right? So
Yeah.
I think we should from today pick that up. Yeah. And if members feel that should be mandatory, they should say so, and we will make arrangements for that.
Well, can I make a suggestion then? Can we look at the appendix in its entirety? Not now, but after the meeting today, and look at the similar, I think not too dissimilar, the column in 5.2 at page 25. And then can I ask you all to have a look at that and give your considered view as to what you think should be the mandatory training out of all of those for the remainder of the municipal year.
Yeah.
Is that a sensible way forward?
Yeah.
And Anista,
So can I just
yes,
clear then? So what we're saying is we're going to identify what we think is mandatory training for the end to the end of this municipal year.
Yeah.
And councillors will need to attend that training or to or obviously say that they've already attended it or whatever. Is that but then once we get to the end of the municipal year, are we saying that we're going to start with a new approach?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, that I'm happy with that, yeah.
You can look at mandatory foundation.
Yes, I agree.
Because
No, I completely agree.
you should take the opportunity, once standards committee has the responsibility for it, to do it properly.
yes, and to recast it manageable block, manageable slot,
Yes,
taking into account based by
for sure. Yeah,
that it doesn't become that onerous that people then begin to cherry pick, which I think what is happened.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it's human nature, isn't it?
yeah.
You've got a watchload of training dates, and you're thinking, well, I'm not going to attend all of that. I'm just going to attend X, Y, Z, which may or may not be mandatory.
I think one of the things that's been missed and that I actually intended to say straight away was actually to say thank you to Steve, because, you know, he's been at so many of the training and it's been delightful to get to know him, and the training has been incredibly helpful, the ones that I've been able to attend. So I don't think that should be missed. That thanks. So thank you. That being said, there were sort of two concrete proposals that I was making. One is to amend the report to strike out that text that I just.
Yes, which I hadn't.
Yes.
Gotten.
No, I know. I'm just,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah.
And
And then the other thing is whether as a committee, we can express concern that the budget may not be big enough to, perhaps in a letter to the executive.
well, we can, just on your second bit of that, we can, but I think that should also fall part of our recasting work, the overall training, because then we can say, well, if you want good training to be provided, value for money, you've got to pay for it. And that would inevitably mean that we increase the budget.
Yeah.
That?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, at this preliminary stage, we can certainly convey that remark that we are concerned about it right now, but that going forward, we want to have that looked at, reviewed, and we would be expressing a view in due course that budget be increased. Perhaps even by looking at the kind of published training agendas that the LGA currently has anyway, and we can perhaps earmark some of those key ones where we think that we can derive value for money going forward.
You should also do some comparison.
Yeah, exactly.
What other authorities spend on training as well. My own sense is 7,000 is on the low side.
Yes, absolutely.
I was going to say that actually. I don't think £7,000 is a lot of. I mean, it is a lot of money, but for training, I don't think it's a lot of money. To be fair, if you want comprehensive, appropriate training, you can pay for it. That's how it is. But
And
you might
certainly not enough if you want councillors to be able to fill their own gaps in their own knowledge through signing up to LGA training, for example.
Yeah.
Dealing with your first proposal to strike it out, I think you make it on the basis of your personal attendance to these.
Well, I mean, so on the.
I'm asking you to justify it. I'm just saying that I think there's force to what you say.
So it's interesting. So the first one is the subject was addressed by the gender diversity training referred to in paragraph 4.1. That is like impossible to be true. Gender diversity is not the same thing as LGBT. So you wouldn't even have to have attended to know that that's unlikely to be true.
Yes, and
because it's just a different.
Yeah. The description as it stands is therefore misleading.
Yeah.
Point.
And then I also happen to know that it wasn't sufficiently covered in the other training session because of my attendance.
Yeah.
Do you think that should be taken out? Do you think there should be an extra information in there to actually to make that quite clear that what is in isn't quite
The more conventional way of dealing with it is just to put your comment into the minutes.
what I think?
I know, but it's just this report has been published and it contains something that isn't true.
Yes, but and the minutes will be published as well, weren't they, to correct it? Would that help? I'm not
Yeah.
disagreeing with your proposal. I'm trying to find a way out of this.
I mean, reports can be amended.
Yes.
You can propose amendments to reports. And, you know, minutes would be a good way of expressing that I disagree with something in a report.
But it falls short of the.
But it falls short of, I just think the report isn't true.
Yeah.
Which is the bit you want?
So,
About the subject was addressed.
yeah, this subject was addressed by the gender diversity training referred to in paragraph 4.1. That sentence isn't true.
Totally untrue.
Yeah.
But I do feel, I wouldn't want it striked out. I would like it to have some explanation as to why you've been quite clear in terms of the fact that what you're saying to this is it's not correct. But I do feel that we should put an explanation as to why that is. I don't think that's going to be an issue. I think because if you're saying on one hand that's what it says here, if you're saying actually that isn't the case because that was not covered on that training. For me, I'm comfortable to remove something. I think there should be an explanation added to that.
Yeah.
Having discussed it within the meeting, it's clear that this was not.
Yeah.
Blah 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 blah.
We accept that it wasn't covered.
Well, I think, Nate obviously has as good a memory as I have about this, and he may well be right. But what I'd like to do is go back to the original slides just to be absolutely clear what was covered. But I wrote it in good faith, but to be honest, the report was written quite at speed. Like the request came through on the Friday afternoon, I wrote it on the Monday, and it went to Joy Tuesday lunchtime. So you may well be right, but I guess it's certainly my recollection.
Nate said more than that, which is that regardless of that, it wasn't adequate.
So I guess it's interesting because what does LGBTQ plus awareness mean to you? Because so gender diversity training, it was fantastic training, I should say, and I'm really glad it was arranged. It covered really important topics around, what pronouns are, the difference between sex and gender, the experiences of trans people just trying to live their lives in this society. It didn't cover, for example, like the history of same-sex marriage, or how to deal with somebody who isn't sure about their sexuality, or safeguarding of things like that, or how this topic is addressed in schools, for example. Like it just doesn't cover any of that stuff because that's not the topic of that meeting.
Yeah, I'm happy to take it away, and basically when we come to.
Or could you not put it was slightly partially addressed, but then more information was needed within the training? It doesn't sound as if training was adequate.
No, so gender diversity training is never going to cover LGBT plus awareness because it's a different thing.
Absolutely
It's
different.
just a different.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah.
It was the other one that I had more in mind. Where is it now?
The equalities, diversity, inclusion, and cultural awareness training was so fantastic.
That was the
They got to the bit where it talked about sexuality.
Yeah.
All right, well, look.
That's what I had in mind, that particular one, more than the gender.
Can I make a suggestion? Because I'm conscious of that we have other items to deal with as well. How do we move this forward? Are people in favor of getting it struck out now, or would you rather that Steve goes back to the trainers, clarifies it? I mean, that's going to be more work, isn't it? And if you're happy with that, then
it's just unconventional to strike something out of a report. I've got no objection to taking this away and with Nate and others to kind of work through what we might do in addition.
I think something simply would be the subject was not addressed because it clearly was not addressed. For me,
just some language saying this subject was not sufficiently addressed at the equalities, diversity, inclusion, and cultural awareness, and was slightly touched on at the gender diversity and transgender.
Saying, I suppose, the practical impossibility of amending a published report. You can say, well, I don't.
Let's not prolong this. I think
that's what I've
been made.
Yes.
Yeah. Point has been made very strongly that it didn't cover it sufficiently.
Yeah.
So I think that can be picked up in the minutes, and that is virtually the same as changing.
Yeah, and I'm happy to work with you on developing something further.
I get it is part of the procedures to be able to propose to amend a report, and that's what I'm doing. I'm proposing as a member of this committee to amend the report, and if other members don't feel sufficiently strongly to vote for that, they can vote that down, but that's what I'm doing.
No, that's well noted. Anybody else who have any strong views on this or any views? Just
I can write some word.
writing it out.
I can write some wording for the amendment, that I can give to Joy.
I personally don't see why it can't be amended, is my view.
Yeah.
But,
I think.
Totally get where everyone's coming from. I think it is quite difficult to amend an already published report by the fact that it's already in the public domain. What we could do is, if you wanted, I don't know if we could amend the report itself, because that would mean you'd have to unpublish the whole agenda.
Correct.
Have to add in the right report or the amended report. The only other option we could do is subsequently we could do like a supplementary type agenda where it attaches a revised report, given the concerns that you've raised.
I think that's probably the next best thing.
I think so.
Councillor Higgins. Yeah.
Publish it wrong and then they do an amendment, an apology.
Yeah. I understand all the points that's been made procedurally, but don't forget, ultimately, the overriding issue here is of course cost and not putting taxpayers into further costs. And it strikes me that if we were to go down that route, it would be to unpick the whole.
I mean, it's just the fact that if somebody, I'm saying no one looks at these agendas, but if someone had looked at this agenda and then a week later looks at it and says, oh, that's a different report.
Yes.
And it's like suddenly it's changed and there's no actual reasoning behind it. So I think if you had a supplementary kind of subsequently to the meeting, you could put on the front of that agenda subsequently to, like that concerns were raised at the meeting, and it was therefore decided that this should be either taken out or rewritten, whatever it is you're going to decide to do.
We'll amend it. Should we move that way? Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
happy.
sensible. I've got language just to replace this text,
Okay.
which is this subject was not properly addressed by the Equalities, Diversity, Inclusion and Cultural Awareness training and was only tangentially addressed by the Gender Diversity training.
Yeah.
Which is
That
more accurate.
very well. All right, fine, good. So that takes care of that, and I think it also takes care of our views about the looking at rest of the municipal year, the mandatory training, recasting it, bringing the whole thing back to us, probably by this meeting. That's not too ambitious. Yes.
Yeah.
Very well.
Can I just get clear in terms of what we've done? We've amended the report and that will be.
Yes. Yeah. All right.
So that's.
Let's move on then to the work program. Agenda 7, find it page 33. Sorry, before we do, I think formally we were asked to note Steve's report, contents of the report, which we note. Oh, no, hang on. We are missing. Pardon?
We asked for it though, so we can.
Yes, yeah.
Yes. Are we happy to note it?
Yeah.
With our many thanks.
And you'll go with
your work.
Thank you.
The end of your work, of course. I was going to join in, Councillor Higgins, but I will reserve my final thanks to you when the whole work is done in due course. Thank you very much. Okay, 33 then, looking at our work program. And what we've been asked to do is to consider and agree the proposed work program. We see the same at page 35. So today's meeting, I think, has pretty much everything that we are going to be discussing on the agenda. And then the next committee meeting.
This is the one where we've decided that we're going to have the overcome zone.
Yes.
Together with, the code of conduct will be recommended to council.
Yes.
But the arrangements for
Terms of reference.
terms of reference and the arrangements for
Yes.
dealing with investigation.
Yes.
that will be added to that.
Yes. So I think we will be slightly amending that work
That's right.
program, but yes.
Oh, I was, that last conversation do we need to feed into the programme, into our forward planner,
Yes, we do.
the work on the training programme?
Yes, we do. Yes. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up.
When
Yeah.
did you want that back again?
Uh,
The next meeting?
Next meeting, please.
I'm just wondering what we'll be doing at the next meeting on number 12.
We are bringing back the work that we've discussed earlier to the committee. Is it by way of an update?
Well, I think there's two things. I think there's an update to come back, isn't there, about what we've discussed in terms of how we're going to deliver to the end of the municipal year.
Yeah.
And then there's the new programme, because my
Yes,
take on that discussion was a new approach needs to be agreed.
yes.
Yeah.
So my suggestion would be something comes back in, is it, I don't know, April 24? Is that the right time scale?
Yeah, so can we have an update at the next meeting, I would suggest, and then
Yes.
have the recasted programme
Following meeting.
in the following meeting, January time or Easter?
If January, yeah, whatever's appropriate in terms of getting it developed and what have you.
Yes, but we don't want to let in a slippage,
No.
because of course this has been going on for a while and we want to see finality. So let's get it done fairly urgently. So I think a January would be helpful. Did you have a view on that?
Well, I was just going to say that I hope that report in January would be able to include the sort of comparative budgets
Yes, the full shebang.
program. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that we can, and I'm just thinking about informing the budget process for the next financial year. You know, this is a fairly small budget size, so I don't know whether it would, you know, be relevant to the council's budget process or not, or whether where does the money come out of democratic services, for example, or where does it come from? And do we need to be concerned about, are we going to miss the boat on setting the budget for next year, the timeline, basically?
Well, if we express our view today on this issue, with also the caveat that going forward, we would want to be looking at this to be increasing the budget, so that can be
I will
factored
take
in.
that forward.
Yes.
I'll take that.
And it's also worth noting that the budget scrutiny process is kicking off soon.
Yes.
We've been asked for sort of expressions of interest in that, and that might be something that they want to look at as well as.
So then if we could feed into that
That's fine.
process, that we will be looking for money. Where was the money? I'm just get some water. Oh, sorry. Yes, actually, should we take a comfort break, about 5 minutes?
Yeah.
We're back at 2 minutes to 10. Mr. Past.
8 past, yes. Thank you.
That's right.
No, I won't. Disregard.
we are resuming now. I don't know. Yes, good. Yes, very good. Well, that's the way to spend a comfort break. You're quite right. So we were talking about the October meeting, and I think as well as the January, we dealt with what needs to go in, the additional items that needs to go in both of those meetings, I think, yes? Yeah. And then, hang on, what about the confirmation of the code of conduct work? Where do we see that?
As the code of conduct will, after our discussion later, will go to the council meeting
Yes.
in October.
Oh, yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
So that will
Fine.
be discussed.
Fine, good, all right. And then finally, the 10th of April meeting. I mean, no doubt the next two meetings might bring up
Yeah, that's fine.
other additional materials which may go in. You would say something?
Yes, without going too much into the topic of the constitutional review.
Yeah.
My concern of the general thing is that the annual general meeting, which is when it is proposed to be approved, is too late, and would prefer it go to the one immediately prior to that. And we're due to, it's on our work program for January. I don't think that would prevent a slightly earlier council approval of the new constitution, but because if it was approved, if the new constitution was approved at that annual general meeting, it would mean that at that annual general meeting would perhaps agree things that are then out of date, such as committees, for example. And so it might be problematic to.
So I was hoping that we wouldn't do.
Sure. The question I'm asking you is, if that is my view, is the 10th of January for the review of the council's constitution from a standards perspective early enough to enable if the constitutional review were to be approved slightly earlier?
The debate we're going to have next week at council, right, says that the changes to the constitution is carved it up in 3 sections.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when we take it to the meeting in October, those changes we're hoping to enact from that moment.
Right. Okay.
The code of conduct, for instance, there's no point approving it and then wait till next municipal year, annual council meeting. Yeah, we'll just implement that from that point. And the same applies to the changes in the framework for dealing with complaints and the terms of reference. We would hope to get that approved at the December or January meeting. So we're going to make the changes as we go along rather than leave it all to the end.
Okay.
That's not satisfactory to you.
I don't think it quite answers my question, but I do understand why Satish is sort of limiting it to the topics that are relevant to this committee.
You would rather, and I understand why, you would rather that this was dealt with as expeditiously as possible.
So there are logistical problems created if the constitutional, from my perspective, if the constitutional review isn't finished in time for the next annual general meeting. And right now it is due to be approved at that annual general meeting.
I'm saying that we're going to approve sections of it.
But the process concludes at that
meetings up to that point. So the last council meeting that we're talking about is in the spring. Okay. The last chunk of the constitution will be approved.
Right. Okay. I may have misread it.
To be done between April and the annual council with the scheme of delegation.
Right. Understood. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
I think that
Yes.
is a different slant on things. Yes. Yes. All right.
And
Fine.
we wouldn't want to have the annual council having a debate about the constitution.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're on the same page about that one.
Yes. By which time we were rather late. That's not the forum in which to do so. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. I think that deals with the work program. So what we've been asked to do is to consider and agree the proposed work program. And do we so consider and agree?
With the amendments.
With the amendments?
Agreed.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Alistair? Yes. Very good. Of course, I think councillor isn't able to vote, is she?
No, but
No,
you
of
can
course.
comment.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, fine. Right, so moving on then to the next agenda item, which is the ethical framework update, page 39. And here we are asked to consider the following. Note the declarations of interest made at the meetings for the period 13th of April 23 to the 4th of July 23. Note the list of gifts and hospitality declared for the same period. And finally, note the update on the code of conduct complaints received, which I think forms part of the exempted item towards the end. Right, okay. So yes,
The chair, just obviously this is just for noted.
Yes.
So you've got the declarations at appendix 1.
yes,
And then the gifts and hospitalities, and the second, I think the second appendix. Chair, I think we do need to look at our rules on gifts and hospitality.
yes.
And maybe sort of refresh the framework for this. I'm not entirely convinced that all members appreciate the rules on this. Yeah.
Did we not have a look at this? I'm sure we did.
We did,
And we upped the amount,
we did, yeah.
not so long ago, in fact.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did.
It's £50, I think, isn't it? It's £50. We did. It's quite a long time ago now.
We did.
Actually, yeah.
Quite a bit of work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Quite a bit of work was, but why do you say that the members don't appreciate?
Because I'm just a little bit surprised that we've got one declaration, yeah, for this period. And it's actually below
50 quid?
the 50 quid.
Yes.
The fact that you have changed it hasn't got round to everybody.
Yeah, from a member's perspective, I thought it was still 20.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
So
That's probably more
I don't know whether that's my fault or whether our communication hasn't.
I was going to say, if I may say so, that's probably more a reflection on members not
Yeah.
getting or reading the material rather than a reflection of the deficiency of the material.
It's been quite a long time.
Yes.
Actually, isn't it?
What I'm saying is it's very possible that this is a personal failing. But always very.
And I'm not suggesting.
What I'm suggesting is it may be possible that information hasn't been, because there's also a declaration here that is below that value, which suggests that, that councillor also wasn't aware of the change.
Right. So then this is more a question of accessibility and education then, isn't it?
Which I could
Yes.
note the sort of the declaration.
Yes.
as well, but also to ask me as monitor officer to remind all members.
Yes.
Around the rules in relation to gifts and hospitality.
Yes. Would you? I think that's wise.
Mhm.
Yes. Everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
It's
Right.
just really an update to the actual declaration that you do have in the fact that we did have a query with the member as to whether they had actually accepted the gift, because it just says was offered. And indeed they did, but then they donated it. So just wanted.
Okay.
All right. Yes, I think it would be useful to have those details
Chair,
in the deficiency. Yeah.
I think we spoke about this previously, about these being declared, because I think this has been an ongoing thing where we have said there doesn't seem to be that much declaration in the time over the last or not, or maybe they're not sure in terms of the
We did. Yes. No, you're quite right. I recall it.
Yeah.
And I think the other possibility is that there may be ignorance. They may be fully aware of it, but choosing to simply ignore it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't level it at anyone in particular, but these are speculations. So I think yes.
So let me remind.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
okay.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Well, we've dealt with the associated ones, I think 8A and B. Update, yes. So the all-important update on the code of conduct, which we find. Is there an item on this? Well, no. I think it's an oral update. Is it?
Chair, I think you might have to exclude the press and public if you're outside.
I gave you my supplementary agenda for the text of an amendment, and I might need it back.
Okay,
Thank you.
Of course, that's fine.
are we, oh no, we're,
No, we're on the
no,
other page.
okay.
When the applicant in the code of conduct.
All right, okay, sorry.
Chair, my colleague's going to take you through.
Yes, yes.
You Chair. So members of the committee will have noted that at the last meeting, it was agreed that the chair would write to the Labour group to request a response on the LGA model conduct that the committee proposed should be adopted by the council. We can compare, as you know, that the chair did indeed write to the majority group and that a response was received on the 5th of July. So if I can ask members to turn to the supplementary agenda, item 9, which sets out the formal response by the majority group. Members will see that in summary, the majority group raised 7 specific points in response to their review of the model code. The response was referred back to the consultant who is supporting the council in actually undertaking the constitution review. And I'm just going to take members through a summary of the responses that were received. So as members will know, the first couple of points made by the majority group was in relation to the terminology used to refer to the mayor and councillors within the code. And there was a suggestion that there should be a reference to elected member where possible. This has been reviewed by the consultant, and if members do refer back to the model code, they will note that actually in the introductory section, it does actually make clear that the code applies to the elected mayor and that any references code to councillor means elected, co-opted or independent member. So it was proposed that in response, what would simply happen was that this is highlighted as part of the code as opposed to any separate additional references made in the terminology. That was the same response that was given in respect of the second bullet point, which again referred to the reference to the position of the directly elected mayor. The majority group then went on to consider the scope and interpretation at the beginning of the code. Again, there was a point raised about the distinction between independent members and whether terminology was being used interchangeably. Co-opted and independent members are separate and distinct. And again, this is going to therefore be inserted into the code just so that attention is drawn to that. There were then also some references to the ACAS code in respect of bullying and harassment. The code itself does make clear that there are prominent references to the ACAS definition of bullying within the code, and therefore it wasn't deemed to be appropriate for there to be a separate explanation in the constitution in relation to that. But it was agreed that perhaps there could be some further italicized text in relation to the definition of harassment. And so that comment's been taken on board. There was also a comment about the use of the first tense. The model code uses the first person tense throughout, and therefore if there are any anomalies in the draft, that will be corrected. It is unclear at present, so there is going to be a referral back to the majority group about what supporting document they are referring to in respect of their bullet point 4. And so we'll let the committee know when that's been clarified. I believe that is also the case in respect of their reference to section 7. it's not entirely clear which section they're referring to at present. So that will be looked at.
Do you mean section or sanctions?
Well, they say section, Chair, so it was a little unclear as to which section they are actually referring to, and so clarity is going to be sought.
You mean in 704, paragraph 407?
In paragraph 7.
7, yes. Well, what I'm most concerned about is this in the middle, picking it up from where it says sanctions should also be clear. I think they mean, yes, I think that's your point, whether they mean sanctions or section.
Yes.
Yeah, yes, so be it. Right. And have we written to them about those clarifications already?
No, those are being picked up now, and the majority group will be written to for clarification of those, and then they will be incorporated.
Yes. Sorry, I struggled to follow what conversation happened there. You were referring to bullet point 7 just then. I don't think we've reached that bullet point yet. I think we were discussing bullet point 5, which makes reference to a section 7, which I also checked and couldn't find what they were referring to there. So I don't think we're talking about the word sanctions in bullet point 7 yet.
No, but I think in your reference to paragraph 4, what was this, paragraph 7, you also included a reference to paragraph 7. But we need to
Yes.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. All right. We're going to carry on. Yes. Sorry, we interrupted you in the middle of your report. Apologies.
I think you've just dealt with, Chair, bullet point 7 itself. There was at bullet point 6, there was a point from the majority group if that there should be a reference to resources and national agencies, and that has been taken on board, and those links can be supplied and inserted into the code. And then finally, there was a comment about the track changes, which of course we would be removed if once the code was being put forward to council. Obviously, they were tracked for the majority group's reference at the time.
Very well. So where does this take us then in terms of the finalization of the work on the code of conduct?
So we will now incorporate,
Yes.
Once we've also sought clarification, Chair,
Yes.
and then as the monitoring officer stated, that will now be prepared with a view to that being put forward to council for approval in October.
Yes. So I thought we heard at the last meeting or the meeting before that they were up in arms. I'm not sure if that's their words. I think that's probably my description of it. Is this the extent of this? All right, very well. Anyway, sorry, I'm perhaps being a bit judgmental here, but yes.
I was also going to comment on the same point, and I've spoken lots, so you're very welcome to go first.
Thanks, Nat. There were some challenges, I think, with this whole process, and did have quite a challenging discussion.
Yes.
At our last meeting, and I have to say I'm quite pleased, for a better want of the word, that they've gone away and come back and given us their changes, because I think based on the discussion that we had, I thought there was going to be a lot more. And it seems there are some minor things which do need looking at. Take those on board. I think my concern previously was that it took quite a long time to, we put a lot of work into this. And I felt at the time that was not being taken into consideration. However, it has been. So I think I'm very pleased that we are now at the state where we are. And if those changes could be made, I think that's great.
Yes. Quite right. Yeah.
I'm also very happy with the conclusions that have been drawn about the Labour Party's comments. The main comment I wanted to make, and obviously I wasn't on the committee at the time the decision was made to delay in order to enable the Labour Party to comment when they weren't able to at that point in time. But I have sort of watched that meeting. I've read and it seemed that they were very concerned about lots of very important things, and maybe that influenced the decision to wait. And I have to say, having reading these changes, that doesn't seem to stack up, and I'm not sure it was worth the wait, to be honest. And I think if I had been in that meeting, I think what I would have been advocating for was, you know, if the Green Group had come to that meeting and said, I'm not sure that we've had time to comment yet, I'm not sure it would have been delayed. I think it probably would have gone ahead anyway. And yeah, I think I would have been advocating for not delaying just because somebody had missed the deadline to
Yes,
comment.
well,
Certainly not having seen these.
my approach at that meeting was that we try and achieve this through consensus.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons. I'm not going to state the very obvious. Right. And I think, if I may say so, without beating my own drum about this, or our drum, I should say, the committee's drum, I think that approach we were vindicated in doing so, although it is a bit of a damp squib of the result that we have. But nevertheless, I echo Gary's view that yes, we've come to the conclusion, and yes, it was delayed. It shouldn't have been. But I suspect that there are reasons, there are causes that's beyond this committee over that. But we've come to this. We are thankful to the Labour group for their response, and we thank them for their cooperation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right. Thank you very much. I think, therefore, then that deals with that item, doesn't it? What we've been asked to do, we've dealt with. So, yes.
Just for clarification, subject to taking on board the comments of the Labour Party, proposing as a committee to put that forward to the next council meeting in October. Is that right?
Subject to taking on the comments of the Labour Party as addressed. So some of them were somewhat dismissed. So yeah, not all of the comments.
No.
Yes. Yes. Everybody?
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, agreed.
Judy?
Yep.
Anne? Very good. Then so be it. There it is. Yeah. Okay. Yes, so now we come to the excluded item, and to those of you who have been patiently no doubt enjoying our now say goodbye to you for this evening until we meet again. And the next meeting, we come to the excluded item. Can we resolve to go into the excluded session? If so, say aye.
Could we explain why, for people who are watching, what we're doing? I've not been to one of these meetings before.
Yes.
Just we haven't told them why we're excluding them.
Well, the items under question, hopefully, they are confidential. Without being too technical about this, which I really want to avoid being rather legalese, there are confidential items which requires by legal obligations from the public domain, and so on those bases is appropriate known as closed session, and that is why we will be the confidential period, or rather the moment, and of course also to ensure that we don't reveal the identity of the individuals involved in those confidential the items or materials. I hope that's helpful, unless anybody else has any better definition or explanation to add to that. I think we will resolve to do it. So can we all agree to do so? Say yes.
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 Thank you. Let's turn off the cameras.